This content is brought to you by BEC Financial Technologies, developing and operating IT for Danish banks.
Please warmly welcome Abbas.
Thank you so much. Here we have GraphQL. Actually, I'm Abbas from the Payback, and during our modernization journey, we decided to make modernization in also part of our product. Part of that was regarding immigration from the REST API to the GraphQL. So let's start with our agenda. Here we will talk about what is exactly the GraphQL, what is the difference between GraphQL and REST API, why we should use GraphQL. We will talk about a core concept in GraphQL, Java integration, and also we will touch some part of the advanced topic in Java. And at the end, we will have the example and a code demo. So if you look at this part, we can see our request is completely different with the REST. In the traditional API, when we wanted to calling some API in REST, we couldn't make any definition for our output. So we will call the API, we will fetch the data from the REST, and everything is in a static way. What is GraphQL exactly? GraphQL is a way that we can communicate with our API and fetch the data exactly we need. In the same way, we can say how we work with the database. In the database, we will say what we want, and we will fetch this data exactly like that. So here is some way that we can do with our API. So our client can ask us, we need the user with this ID. From the user, I need the name. I need the post. And from the post, I need a title. For the followers, I would like to get the last 3 followers, and just I would like to get the name of that. And here is the output, same as our request that we have. So in general, the GraphQL is one query language that client can define the data that they needed. They are just single endpoint. We have our schema, and I will show you in the example. The one beautiful part of the GraphQL is regarding the real-time data support. So we can have subscription there, and the data in the real time can provide for us. Also, we have the hierarchy structure. I think more or less we are familiar with this type of API calling. So this is the famous way to calling the REST API. And here we have, if we wanted to get a data for the user, we will call user, for example, with ID 1. Or if we wanted to get the organization for the user, we need a separate API to get the organization for the user 1. If you have a different type of data, you need to have a different type of API here. So it could be several API, and here could be the sample of the GraphQL. In the GraphQL, we can say, I would like user with ID 1 and with this organization structure. And we can get exactly the thing that we needed. I think regarding this explanation that I had, we could more or less guess what is the difference between the GraphQL and REST API. The first one is regarding the data fetching. So in the REST, we have several type of API, several endpoint, but in the GraphQL, we just have a single endpoint. Also regarding a response structure. In the REST, we have the fixed response structure, and we cannot change it. But in the GraphQL, we can change the response structure exactly the way the client wants to fetch the data. Also, one of the common problem in the REST is regarding over and under fetching. Here in the GraphQL, we don't have this problem. Just imagine that you getting one API for calling the user, and you just need the name of the user. But this API is included of 5, 10 attributes. So what we can do? Nothing. We have to use the network for that. We will use the database for that. And all of this data we will fetch in a single endpoint. And we have no way to run from that. If we want, we need to create a lot of different APIs. And more or less, it's impossible. So regarding this point, regarding over or under fetching, GraphQL can solve our problems. And we just will fetch the data that we needed. Another problems, I think more or we had this kind of the problems. Each time we need to changing the version of our API, we need to create a new API, new logic, and etc. like that. And we don't know when we will be released of the previous version. Sometimes for a long time we have to do the support, and GraphQL is a versionless. So we don't need to creating another version. It will covering some feature like duplicated, or for example, if you add some new attribute or property in your response code, until the client don't ask about it, it will not create any problem for them. But also, we have the real-time support, as I mentioned. In the rest, we need to using something, some external tools like a WebSocket. But in the GraphQL is built-in, and all of them are compatible together, and they can work really good. But one point is regarding tools and caching. Because the GraphQL is a new tool, still we don't have a variety of the tools that we have for REST, but they are enough. Also, the Postman supporting them, so for working with them, they are enough, but it's not comparable with REST. Regarding the caching, we don't recommend to using the GraphQL because caching GraphQL, it's more complex. We need to have in our custom cache for that. And in some situation, our API really need to use cache. GraphQL is not recommended. So why we should use GraphQL? I think more or less all of this stuff we mentioning about it. So client can get exactly data they need. We have a single endpoint. Our schema have a structure. It's fast for front-end developer. In the past, it was like this. When the front-end, they needed some API, they have to wait to backend provide this API for them. But right now, they can use one API, and on this API, they can fetch exactly the data that they needed. Because of the real-time update with subscription, no versioning headache, is really better for mobile performance, because usually in the mobile, when we're using the mobile, one of the critical part is regarding the bandwidth, and we need to exactly fetch the data that we need in the mobile apps. So if we're using the REST API, usually we having the overfetching, but with GraphQL, as they can get exactly the data they needed, they don't have this kind of the problem. Also regarding the kind of the structure that we have the nested or related data, structural data, working with GraphQL could be really better. So here we have a core concept in the GraphQL. Here is the part of the GraphQL that we call them as a schema. We could have a different type in a schema. We could have query, mutation, or subscription, and all of this stuff. When we have them in a schema, they will connect it to the resolver, and the resolver is responsible for fetching the data and providing the response. All of this stuff, we will have them in our demo code, and we will talk about them with details. Also, the one beautiful part of the GraphQL is have auto documentations. So we don't need in the like REST, we don't need to generate document with Swagger or some specific thing like that. So here is the example of GraphQL schema. Here is the type of our query. Here is the place that we are introducing our query. For example, here I have one query with users, and this query with users will fetch collection of the user as an output. We have one user, and this user will fetch the data as an ID, as an input, and we will answer just one user. Same for the organization. Here, we will make a definition of the organization. So here we have the organization, and our organization have ID and name. As I mentioned, it's really good for the hierarchy data. Here is the user. User have ID, username, email, and organization. This organization was defined there. We have a mutation, and we have the subscriptions also here. So we will define all of this stuff. And actually, GraphQL are able to generate a document from this and provide this document to the client. So when the client wanted to work with GraphQL, they already have all of the data that they needed. And right now, GraphQL is really integrate with the Java ecosystem. We have the GraphQL Java is the base library for that, and Spring, like always, they have a really good integration with this stuff. Also in the demo, I will show you how much it was easy to, having the just one GraphQL project. And also we're having some tools, and also Postman supporting the GraphQL with full documentations. And when we should to use GraphQL and when we shouldn't use it. So when we have the complex UI that we need to have a flexibility for fetching our data, is better to use the GraphQL. For mobile client, because of the bandwidth. For the microservice API gateway, in the one of the advanced topic, I will talk about it. But in the GraphQL, we can have a different microservices and one gateway. And this gateway will be able to fetch all of the data from a different microservices. Just imagine in the one of the social media applications, we have a one microservice is responsible for user. We have a one microservice is responsible for post, one for review, one for like, and etc. like that. But you don't want to call them separately. You can have with the GraphQL one gateway centralized, and on that place you can fetch all of the data in one endpoint. So when we shouldn't use it, when we have the simple CRUD, still the for using the simple CRUD REST API work better. When we need to caching, so for caching, as I mentioned, if you would like to use caching in the GraphQL, we have to create our custom cache. More or less will be challenging if we have a really sensitive API with high security data. It still is not recommended to use the GraphQL because of the hierarchy of the GraphQL. You can go the deep. And also for some user, if you wanted to filter some data, sometimes could be challenging. So also another part is regarding the large binary files for upload, for the large binary file for upload. Also still we recommend to using the REST API, and GraphQL is not supporting good on that part. Regarding our advanced topic, just imagine the situation that we have several microservices and we would like to have a one gateway and fetching all of this data in one gateway and just having a one schema, and this user wanted to use this schema. On the situation like this, also GraphQL have two approach for us. The first one, we could custom our resolver to fetch the data from the place that we needed exactly. Also, just imagine, this one is not our microservice. It's a one microservice from the third-party company or from another place, and we don't have any effect to change it or using the GraphQL there. We just have the API. Still, with GraphQL, we are able to fetch all of this data in one place and fetching the data exactly we needed. From this part, we can see in our demo code as well. Also, the GraphQL with federations, they will supporting some key point, like for example, extend external key. And here is an example of that. In your user service, you could have the type of the user like that. And in the review service, you can extend your user type with adding review. So more or less, it looks like that, and you can having a one service, one gateway, and this gateway will be the place that you can fetch all of the data that you needed, and you can send this data to your client. Okay, also, when we are talking about the GraphQL, one of the features the GraphQL have is a hierarchy. When we are talking about hierarchy, always we have n+1 problems. We are challenging with n+1 problems in ORM and in any place that we are hierarchy. What is n+1 problems? Just imagine the situation. We have our user, and our user would like to fetch the data, but user have a task. And this task, for example, could be in a different table, could be in a different service, or etc. like that. So for each user, we usually fetching one by one task. So we have a one and n regarding this one call. For avoiding this problem, also in the GraphQL, they have a really nice approach, and it's full integrated with Java and Spring. And we have batch mapping, and during of this batch mapping, we can fetch all of the data that we needed. Okay, so let's a bit showing code. I hope that You cannot see my screen. Wait. Okay. I think right now we can see the code, yeah? So actually using GraphQL with Spring is really easy. As a dependency here, we just need to add the starter of the GraphQL and a starter of the web. And also if we would like to use subscription, we need to add the WebSocket at all. But all of this configuration with Spring Boot will happen in the background, and we don't have a lot of challenge for doing this stuff. And here we will introduce a one schema. And for example, this schema, it was that one that I show you in the presentation. So we have the organization, we have the user, we have the query. And during of this query, we have 4 different query. We have mutation and subscription. And per each query or mutation or subscriptions, we need to have a one resolver. So actually, for each of them, in our controller class, we having a one resolver. For query, we use query mapping. For mutation, we use mutation mapping. And for subscription, also we use subscription mapping. Okay. Automatically, they will recognize each other with name. For example, here we use the user. And here, if we have the users, same as there, it will be work correctly without any challenge and problems. But for sometimes, we would like, for example, have a different method type. And also here, the GraphQL will support. And we just need to say to our annotation, this is for which field or which type or which value. So I will rerun the project. And let's start do the demo. So as I mentioned, it have auto documentation. Just imagine, I will put the GraphQL, and here it's all of the query and etc. that we needed. You can see in the Postman they recognize them automatically. Also, is another tools when we use a GraphQL is a GraphQL, and also in the GraphQL. When you run your Spring Boot application, you have access to all of this stuff, and you can see all of this documentation is auto-generated, and different tools they can have access to that. Also, your client they can have access to that, and we don't need to write a new API or, for example, new documentation for that. Okay, so let's try to call user. If I'm calling the user, I will say I would like to just have ID, name, and email. And the data I will fetch, it will be exactly the ID, username, and email. And for example, if here we mention that we would like to fetch our organization as well. As you can see, here is the just, in the Postman, we just click and we have our query here, but we can write with our hand as well. So here I change it and I say, right now I would like to have organization. If I run it, I will get user with ID and also with organization. I can have more than one query in one call. For example, here I say, okay, I choose all of the users with organization, but I would like to get all of the organization lists as well. So as you can see, our response code is here. At the beginning is regarding the user. And after that, it will bring us the second return of our API and its organization. It's a really powerful tool, and you can have, with one API, how many data that you would like you can fetch. And yeah. So let's go for the second part of that I mentioned regarding this advanced topping. Here we have the batch mapping, and during of this batch mapping, I say, when you are fetching the user for organization, collect all of this user, bring it here. with some logic that I will write for you, fetch the data, collect the data, fetch them, and bring them back. And for example, here is not any specific code, just I collecting the organization ID from the user. And after that, I will call the one-time database to avoiding n+1 problems, so fetching all of this data in one API and bring back this data. So I will clear my log. I will come back here again. I don't need to fetch any more organization for this test. And I would like to just test the user. Okay, so I will run the user and I will come back here again to our code. As you can see, we just have a one call to our data base for fetching the user. And after that, we will collect all of the data that we need for organization. And we have a separate code here for organization. So right now, the question is, can we have this kind of the deal with third-party API? Yes, exactly here, beside of that place that I'm calling the database, for example, for getting the organization. Just imagine organization is a third-party API. We can call our third-party API, for example, with REST template or etc. like that, and fetch all of this stuff in one API and bring it back. The question is, REST cannot do it. So in the REST also that I can have the for example, organization, fetch this organization and answer that in the same way. Yes, but the point is each time that you are calling your API, even if you don't need organization, you have to process all of this place for organization as well. Another stuff that I wanted to show you here is regarding the subscription. So actually, the logic behind of the subscription is that we will call our user created. We will subscribe there, and after that, per each user that we will create, we should get the update, real-time update for that, same as WebSocket that we are using. So here I will come. So I have a two tab right now. I will come here to the subscription of the user creation, and I will run the query. As you can see, the WebSocket is connected successfully. But I don't have any kind of data here. So I will come here for creating a one user. I will say the name test, email. And with the organization ID 1. So I will just query this one for creating one user, and user is created. And you can see in the real-time data, we can fetch this data as well. If I create a user 2, a test 2, for example, you can see again that we are fetching this data as well. And if we wanted to compare it with REST, yes, in REST we can do something like that, but we need to have the WebSocket, and dealing with WebSocket, sometimes it's a bit challenging. So let's go back to our presentation. Okay, so for the reference of that, you can check the GraphQL website or also GraphQL Java. And also in the Spring, we really have a good documentation for that. And it depends of the which tools that you would like to use. Then website have also some content to read. And thank you so much. That was just word in Polish, I know.
And now it's time for our audience. Who would like to start with a question? Oh, I see a person.
So as you mentioned earlier, when it comes to handling highly sensitive data, GraphQL is not recommended. However, if the system has certain level of highly sensitive data, is it possible to mask that data? in the
Yes,
API?
actually, two part of the advanced topic in the regarding the GraphQL is regarding the monitoring and regarding the security. In the security, we need to mask all of the sensitive data. We need to have enough alert in our, for example, monitoring system and etc. like that. Absolutely. For example, in the place that we are using in our current project, we mask part of the sensitive data, but the point regarding the high sensitive and high secure data, it's we have this kind of the hierarchy, and if we go so deep on that, is it still controllable? But for that kind of the levels, if we go very deep, sometimes we can, we miss some part of this masking or some stuff like that. But another point is we always need to have the monitoring in our alert in our monitoring that if we fetching or we doing some high risk data, we need to have some alert and be aware of that.
Any more thoughts?
I have a question because you mentioned also that GraphQL is not proper for mobile because of the width band. And would you like to explain what is the reason?
So actually the rest is not really good for the mobile because always in the mobile we have problems with bandwidth. So we need to fetch our data in the mobile application with a low bucket. How much we fetch the necessary data in the mobile application will be better. If we're using the REST, we have two options. First, having some general API to fetching all of the data, and after that, the client will filter the data they need. Second, creating a lot of different API for fetching a different variety of the data. And both of them in the reality is impossible. So the solution is GraphQL that we fetch the data exactly we need it.
Oh, okay, understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Presentation. So a hypothetical question, for example, you have an API, it's developed, yada, 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 and at some point of time, well, you add the changes that is not like backward compatible with your current API. So how would you handle it with the GraphQL? So as far as I can understand, you just need like copy your schema, create like a new one with these changes, so you can simultaneously support both of them, because you cannot, I guess with the mobile application, you cannot achieve zero downtime.
Yeah, really good question. As I mentioned, one of the PowerPoint of the GraphQL is regarding the versioning, that we are versionless. So how we should how we can handle when we are exactly changing something. The first point is we can add how many data that we needed as a new file in our GraphQL schema. We don't any change from the client side because the client will fetch the thing that they need. So if we add something new, it's they can still work without any problems. The second part, we can duplicate our property that we use it, and the client automatically will get notice. This file or this property will not anymore longer, for example, in the future usable. So they will start shifting this property to the new one that we introduced them, because all of this stuff have auto documentation, and they will be automatically aware of that. So after that, we saw in our monitoring of the server, all of this stuff was completely moved and nobody use it, we can remove it. So it's not in the same time or in a 1 second we can change the version of the product or changing the structure of that, and we don't copy the new structure. We just change our current structure, but after the processing the time, we can have enough confidence to, for example, remove some field of that, as we can say with our auto-generation documentation to the client. So it will take, it will time consuming, but why we say it's versionless? Just compare it with the Java, with the REST API. In the REST API, we have one version and we need to create another version, and this another version will have a separate APIs, you know? Yeah. You're welcome.
Oh, I see a person already.
Hi. Is there any built-in way to keep track of which data, which endpoints are actually used? So if we change something, we would be able to see that nobody is using something and something might be removed?
Yes, actually, it's not just regarding the GraphQL in whole of the project. If we building the one project in the enterprise way, we need to have always enough log and enough metrics and enough alert in our monitoring the system. We need to be able to observe all of the behavior in our system, and after that we could with more confidence say, so what is the current situation of using this kind of the API or this kind of the method. And actually this point that you mentioned, it's bringing a beautiful topic also regarding the GraphQL, because in the GraphQL, one of the advantage of that, we can understand better how the client behave. And regarding them request, more frequently request that they have, because they have optional priority request. With this kind of the request that they can have, we can also improve our performance of the system, because we right now know how they behaving and which kind of the API they need more.
Any more thoughts? All right. So now I would like to welcome Paweł Niewęgłowski to present the Community Award.
Thank you so much.